Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode of Analytics Mindset. This episode is going to be a little bit different than other ones. We are going to go into more of a podcast style. So, if you want to just hear to this episode, you are welcome. There is not going to be any graphics this time around, and it can be considered an audio only episode. Without further ado, I'm going to go into something that a lot of people actually ask me whenever in LinkedIn when I connect with somebody or when I just try to talk about my career. The future of data analytics and AI, more specifically, again, Gen AI. When people refer to AI nowadays, it's 90% of the time Gen AI and all of that. Why this video? Because again, that's trope I hear quite a lot, and I'm going to present some of my thoughts here, and this may help you in the future too. I will give you some tips on how I think things are gonna go for the data analytics, data science, and data engineering, because those are the three career tracks that I have more experience with, and how it's going to shape the future. First of all, I want to have a quick disclaimer here that all of this is my own personal opinion. I do share these videos also with my professional network. Any views that I have here are 100% mine. They are not from anybody else. They do not represent my employer. They are 100% mine. All these views are my personal opinions here. But with that, the current AI landscape, we know that there is now a lot of these reasoning models wave, and that's actually something that I'm going to touch more in detail later on. AI is becoming very good at researching a lot of stuff really quickly and then give it back to you with a certain probability of what's going to happen. That's an important disclaimer. There is a lot of AI tools, Gen AI tools out there. There is grounding techniques that we have explored. There is connection techniques. You can augment Gen AI with RAGs, etc. You can do a lot of things, honestly. But these tools are also becoming a little bit more pricey, not per token, that's becoming cheaper, but it's becoming a little more pricey to actually work onto them, to actually get them to do a task. Mostly because the tokens are being used in the reasoning model, especially quite a lot. And everybody's trying to push us AI. We know that Copilot is everywhere. You have ChatGPT for obvious reasons. You have cloud. You have all of these things. You have a lot of models, Grok, all of these all over the place. They are improving, yes. And they sell you all these productivity gains, all of these. We're going to be able to cut so much cost. We're going to be able to increase the productivity of our employers. You get the deal. That is our current AI landscape right now. There is very good, actually, developments there too. You have image recognition that now has popularity that didn't have before. It's not Gen AI. They marketed as it, but that has been there since forever. And not just now, we're able to do that, or translation too, or text to speech is becoming better because of some underlying advances there on the transformer architecture. My point is, AI right now is a lot more advanced and mature than before, but I do believe that there is still room to improvement. How much? We will see. We have heard about the singularity and all these things that we get solved, that eventually an AI will be able to just reason like us for other personal convictions. I do not believe that's possible. But I do think that AI will get into a point where you will not need to do a lot of your regular tasks anymore. And that brings us to its biggest advantage and biggest weakness. Its biggest advantage, obviously, is you can generate a very original work with other previous data. You take all of these different trends, you take all of these different texts, you can summarize stuff, you can tell it to create a story, you can tell it to write your poem, etc. Why can it do that? Because it's looking at the internet, it's looking at all of this wealth of knowledge that has been recorded, how humans interact. And then you have a very complicated model that basically assigns probabilities to the next word, or in the case of image generation, you are actually doing it per pixel. It is the same concept at the end of the day. But what is the biggest disadvantage of this? It is a very powerful tool to create new stuff, something that a lot of people were not aware of before. But it's also stochastic. In more of a systems theory, you have two different kind of systems: a stochastic system and a deterministic system. Deterministic means what it means. You can put stuff in, the same output is going to come by every single time. There is no variation. A stochastic system has a probability of giving you a different response. If you put the same prompt 10 times to a GenAI model, you most like almost 99% sure you're gonna get at least one different result, if not more. You may get very different. You might have the same outline, you might have the same information, but it's going to be graded very differently. That's the temperature parameter that we saw before. And that's because the GenAI model will go through that. It's already pre-trained, but still it will also try to retrieve that by different probabilities. Why do I say this is also its biggest weakness? Because you have things like, especially in my work, in data governance, for example, or in documentation. I don't need documentation to be dynamic. I need documentation to be grounded, to be the true, and then to reflect any changes that happen later on. Or like I showed in my Excel and Qualys video. I can do it with Copilot. I can do it with any other Gen AI, but it may change. It might be wrong. That's the reason why whenever you ask AI something, there is also a probability that it's going to be plainly wrong. It's going to be fully confident of its answer with you because it doesn't know. It's just a probability model. As much as we try to personify AI models, they are nothing more than a very complicated neural network at the end of the day. The deep learning, same concept. You are just going through all these different layers and trying to predict the next word coming up. Yeah, that's its biggest weakness because when you need certainty, those tasks can't be replaced by GenAI yet. Now, there is grounding, there is RAG, there is all these techniques, they're still in their infancy. And the way I see this, there is two main paths that you can do. You can either basically retrieve that every single time and human check the output that you should do, by the way, and we will go into that in a second. Or you can just put the output once and then you have a deterministic model. What's the problem with that? That if you do that way, if you generate the output once and you forget about it forever, there is a chance that it's going to be wrong the first time. And if you don't check it, you're not going to get your correct answer again. Those are my thoughts there. A lot in data analytics needs to be grounded, needs to be deterministic. There is no, hey, I have a probability here that may or may not work, and let me just copy and paste this code and hope it works, etc. There is a lot that I can say also on the software engineering market, from my perspective at least. A good reason why I will have it linked in my description. There is quite a bit of stuff there. There is, for example, things like entry-level jobs are the ones being targeted right now. As much as our future is sold that everything in AI will be automated AI in the future, it doesn't seem that trend. Actually, it seems to be regressing because, again, the biggest weakness of Gen AI, Agnetic, etc., Copilot agents is that they cannot give you the same output twice. They will always have some uncertainty there, and that's all actually what allows them to do all these new tasks that we are so used to. With that, all of that done, as I mentioned before, I will leave some links in the description, but the main part is entry level jobs are the most affected right now. Why? Obvious reasons. For example, a lot of these AI tasks are the repetitive. Hey, I have this table in Excel. Can you clean these values and make sure that you get the average and put it into here and there? That's something that used to be done by new hires. Or things like, hey, I need to set up these things. Can you give me some ways to how to document these and put it into a document and then refer to others? All of those things are parts that are being automated first, and then you have the disadvantage that you don't need as many entry level jobs. This also applies to more complex stuff. For example, when people come to me and say, I can generate SQL, I'm like, generating SQL, it is not a big part of my job. I would say probably 15% to 10% of my job is actually writing SQL. The other good chunk of it is actually thinking, how do I need to write what do I need to write in the query and how need to get information in order to put it. Syntax wise, it's very difficult that I don't actually know something that I'm trying to do, especially in my dataset size. I'm talking to you about hundreds of millions of rows at any given point. It's just inconvenient for me to do a lot of the very small stuff that GenAI is good at. That I know other people have it. GenAI emails, that is something that I'm very divided on. I personally don't use them because I prefer to just use my personal tone and go straight to the point. I know people that every single email they send is just a GenAI email. You should always review them. And that is in the review part. This is less on the analytics side and more on the personal side, but I am strongly believer that you should always check GenAI's output. Because again, especially if you don't have access to grounding techniques, because if you ask GenAI a random question and you don't have an actual documentation behind it, an actual bank of knowledge bank, you are not going to be able to ground it. You should always double check GenAI output. Now again, seeing some reports of some people treat them like they're psychologists, they're therapists. Really, do yourself a favor, please, and double check whatever is recommended you. If GenAI recommends you something, please always check. That's why people say you should always check with your own personal physician, your doctor, somebody, etc., that is an expert, because Gen AI can't replace a doctor. It can't replace a therapist. Every single person has different, and this is actually a very good parallel. Every single person has a very, very different mindset. Every single person has their own different way of seeing the world. And you don't want a probability model to just do judgments on you and say, hey, this is what you should do. But yeah, let me know if you have any comments in the discussion. But as always, I will leave you all of my at least what I think. There is another video also that inspired me to do this in part that GenAI models are becoming cheaper per token, but they are also consuming a lot more tokens, and that is by design. As GenAI models get more and more complex, as you add more and more parameters, it's going to be more expensive to run them. Same thing between, as we have seen in the past, that I will put it somewhere here too. Logistic regression versus random forest. A logistic regression model might be able to give you 90% accuracy of a random forest model. But the random forest model is awfully more complicated. Is it worth to get that 10% gain? That's up to you. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just don't need this overly complicated model to do very simple tasks. That's just the truth of it. And with AI models, it's the same. You may just want to use your old ChatGPT model from 2 years ago. Yeah, it might not have all the fancy whistles all over the place, but it works for what you want to do. You want to summarize 10 books and put them into one. Yeah, that's what it's going to do. All right. With that being said, the next one is, as I mentioned before, that AI is becoming very expensive, and I will put this somewhere in the video too. Again, that's a very insightful video. It is just becoming more and more expensive to run these reasoning models because they consume a lot of tokens. And obviously, not only on the token and monetary value, but I think all of us know that AI is not the best with the environment. Even if you don't care at all about the environment, you should realize we all have limited resources. And the way economics work is the more electricity AI models consume, the higher your utility bill will be. That will also be in the discussion, but in a lot of the world, utility bills are increasing because AI is consuming a lot more. Data centers are very expensive to run. Gen AI models require a lot, like a lot of data to actually work and other considerations. But it's becoming very expensive, not only in the monetary value. At some point, if costs don't go down, that's where we need to start to ask us. Is it worth to keep refining these models? Is it worth to keep making them more complicated and let's say get 10 times more parameters if that's going to mean this model is not going to take 5 times more resources? That is a social contract question that we will get when we get there, but not yet. And I don't know about what's going to happen in the future. Not so you, not so these AI experts, not so all of these other companies. Something that you need to keep in mind is the same with Steve Jobs, same with all of these big celebrities out there. Same with Mark Zuckerberg and everybody, all these famous big tech guys and gals. I'm not sure if I remember one off the top of my head, but you get my point. Out of these people that lead these companies, they have a vested interest. Remember that. They own awful amounts of stock in these companies. Obviously, Sam Altman is going to have a very, very big interest on ChatGPT becoming the next big thing. Obviously, Tim Cook, in the case of Apple, is going to do the best to dodge all the AI stuff and the threats that people are saying that Apple is going to be replaced. Obviously, Mark Zuckerberg is going to try to get all these people on board and pay them millions of dollars to develop, etc. My point here is you will not know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe AI will make us all of us obsolete. Maybe we will go into a utopia where we don't need to work anymore in the Wall-E style. Or maybe the other way happens around us. It's most likely now that we have just very few people in the top and everybody else just renting for their lives in manual jobs. We don't know. Again, all of this is just my opinion. Don't take it like a grain of salt. But the uncomfortable truth is that nobody knows what's going to happen. And the more uncomfortable truth is that things can change really quickly in the future. You will be part of these decisions, and the society as a whole is going to start making more of those decisions. What is the best for this? What is the best for that? What is going to be the best thing to do with all these resources? What is going to be the best? Do we need to keep these jobs? We don't need to keep these jobs? And a lot of people argued before that it may happen like in the past where you had a technology advance that then freed up labor, and then that labor was able to do other things. I don't disagree with that view. The main problem here is that we just have a lot more people than ever before now. That's part of the problem. We have way too many people all over the world. That's not a bad thing per se, but the thing is, when the industrial revolution happened, it had like don't quote me on this. I'm not looking at the statistics right now, but we did not have 8 billion people. And then you have all the societal, more what I would like to say, high level problems, like too many old people, too few young people. Pensions are becoming more expensive for countries to run, and nobody wants to get the burden of them. That is something that's happening around the world, in some countries more than others. I don't want this to become a more politics kind of deal, but again, those are high level issues that will need to be addressed. And AI might be something that help us a lot with that, or it might make inequality even worse. We don't know. Again, that's just the very scary part of the future. You won't know. There is uncertainty. And going back to the analytics side of things, I feel that there is a lot of ways to improve yourself. You can learn a lot about AI. I think that's the best part. More than build agents all day or trying to like create things all over the place. Try to understand better how AI works. Why does it work that way, and use it responsibly. I completed myself a lot of Gen AI certificates, and they are gonna be somewhere over here too as well. But my point, as I told you before, is remember that that AI is going to change things, yes. But the only way that you can safe proof your career, that's why I actually thought about naming this video how to future proof your career in 2026 and beyond. And the reason why this video is not titled like that is because I cannot tell you. I can't tell you how it's going to be. It's really nobody knows. And if they tell you, hey, these are the skills that you need, these are the certificates, that are programs that you need to do in order to safe proof your career, they are lying to you. They're trying to sell you snake oil. Nobody knows. A lot of the manual work for sure, a lot of the easy stuff, a lot of the formatting. Eventually, when AI becomes better at formatting Excel, that will take a lot of jobs out, for example. Um, all of those things are going to be eventually automated to some degree. Now, the question is, to what degree? And is AI at some point reach a plateau where it just cannot improve anymore? Or it starts to regress because there's a ton of bad data out there? We don't know. We do not know, and we won't know until we get there. So yeah, that's going to be the ride. In the meantime, as a summary, we have way less entry-level jobs. I understand the job market is very competitive. Keep applying. Keep trying to separate yourself from others. It is you can make Gen AI a part of your toolkit, but I strongly recommend you to keep doing your other skills too. It used to be that you needed to run linear regression by paper in statistics. You needed to actually write it down, the whole formula, and do it for every single point. Now you can do it in Excel, but a lot of people don't know what linear regression is actually behind the scenes. A lot of people don't know how to read their diagnosis. A lot of people don't know the inference behind it. Same point. AI will be able to tell you, hey, this is what the linear regression model does. And then it's like apply to this data set. But if you don't understand it, if nobody else understands it, it's because you just trust the AI model. When the AI model is wrong, all the house of cards just falls apart. Google calls that human in the loop. I do agree with that perspective that you always need humans there. The question is going to be at the end of the day how much you need to oversee on that AI model. But yeah, with that being said, there is no music intro or outro for this video. Again, different format. It's just a slideshow instead of me starting to talk and starting to end. But as always, thank you for your time. I may do more of this kind of videos in the future, and if not, I may go back to my regular format. But yeah, thank you. Have a good day.